Space has always scared me. There could be life out there, but as far as we know, we are all there is. What we do know is that there is activity out there, as depicted in the series of images from 1874 that show the movement of Venus. Science fiction movies, however, allow us to explore the impossible. And who's to say extraterrestrial life forms couldn't be gorillas in diver helmets? Many a filmmaker has attempted to explore the possibilities in creative ways. Others, however, make films destined for obscurity. And where do these films go? Well, they either get lost to time, becoming lost media, or they live on through less than prestigious positions. The Walmart Bargain Bin. It's my favorite time of the year yet again. The leaves are turning red, and I'm ready to binge a bunch of scary horror films. This year will be a little different, however, as I decided to return to a format I kickstarted the current tenure of my channel on, reviewing one of these 50-movie box sets. I covered Mill Creek's horror box set last summer, so throughout the rest of October I'll be taking a look at their science fiction-themed box set in the hopes of finding some hidden gems. The box art shows Gammera, so I already know there's going to be a couple movies in here I will like. But with a couple exceptions I've seen before on places like Mystery Science Theater 3000, most of these films will be a completely fresh watch. These won't be extremely in-depth reviews of all these films. I don't want this thing to be 5 hours long, but it will be enough to let you know what I think about these movies, and let me tell you, a lot of these are stinkers. Now, this box set has a little bit of history. It was initially released by a company called Treeline in 2004, but the two copies I have here are Mill Creek reissues from 2005 and 2009 respectively. And there are some slight differences between the movie selections of the Mill Creek and Treeline releases. Also, just gonna say up front that I will not dedicate more than 1 minute to a movie if it doesn't have horror/sci-fi elements. In the horror-themed box set, rather confusingly, Mill Creek had all these crime drama films in there, and I feel like I wasted my time talking about them. The equivalent to those on this box set are jungle adventure movies, so I will be giving brief reviews to those before I move on. I'm also gonna say up front that a lot of these movies are gonna look like dog shit. Mill Creek or Treeline or whoever sourced some of these transfers took them from the ugliest VHS rips they could find, and it really shows. If there's a Blu-ray available and I own it, I'll use it. Also, mild content warning, these are older movies, you should know the deal. But, with that said, let's get right into it. Welcome to the Spookathon. Not off to a great start. The incredible Petrified world is the product of one Jerry Warren. It was originally shot in 1957, but withheld from release until 1959, when it was shown in a double feature with Teenage Zombies. Honestly, they should have kept it shelved.
This is the sea.
Why thank you, I didn't know what that was. After a boring science presentation about the creatures of the deep sea, the film proper begins. The petrified world in question is the bottom of the sea, which is explored by an expedition team. You'd think the headlining star John Carradine would join the expedition, but nah, he sticks around on the boat and sees them off. He loses contact with the team and they set out to explore an underwater cavern, where they encounter a crazy bearded man,
I've been here 14 years,
an active volcano, and a single lizard. Nothing to really write home about.
There's nothing friendly between two females. There never was and there never will be.
The underwater scenes look like ass. The whole movie does, actually, which is more of a symptom of this DVD set using an uncleaned transfer. The principal cast's acting is pretty stilted. So many scenes consist of them standing or sitting, talking about what they're going to do next and then acting upon it 5 billion years later. There's some catty dialogue between the ladies, which is the closest this film gets to interpersonal drama.
Craig said this. Craig said that.
The film switches between what this group is doing and what John Carradine is doing to rescue them.
I see 2 men in the water.
Wow, so apparently they didn't even fall deep enough to not be visible from the surface. This whole adventure could have been circumvented if the people on the boat looked a little harder the first time. This movie is barely over an hour, and it still feels like it goes on forever. The back and forth between plot A and plot B makes the pacing really tedious, and the voyage these characters go on lacks any sort of impressive, fantastical event. This is the kind of movie that would have worked better with a bigger budget. Not a great start to the video. The next movie of this box set, Queen of the Amazons, has nothing to do with the stereotypical depiction of the all-female Amazons. It's actually about people who just live in the Amazon. Not sure why it's in this science fiction box set either. It's an adventure film. It follows a woman named Jean trying to find her missing husband, Greg. It turns out he has been captured by a tribe. I've never been a fan of these types of jungle movies because more often than not, half the runtime is walking through the jungle, encountering stock footage of animals. I wish I was doing this list in alphabetical order because I hate to veto a movie this early, but quite frankly, I don't care enough to give this movie, this unrelated to the genre of the video, my time. There's some espionage, hokey dialogue, the stock footage is more interesting than the movie itself. I tried paying attention, but it's like, fuck man, where are the aliens? The ALMAOs, the xenomorphs? Next movie. Moon of the Wolf. Now this is more like it. It's more horror than science fiction, not sure why it wasn't in the horror box set, but it has stronger ties to the genre than a jungle adventure film from the 40s. Not only that, but it's a movie in color, and it's from the 70s. Seeing any movie made past the 60s is something worth celebrating, considering I don't get a lot of those in these box sets. Following the discovery of a dead body, it's determined the cause of death wasn't from some wild animal. But
you've got a murder, Sheriff.
Sure enough, it's a werewolf. The werewolf's last name is Rodanth.
Rodanth?
That caught me off guard. The T, H, and E at the end are silent. The murder mystery element doesn't really work because it's pretty obvious who the werewolf is, but I thought this one was okay. It's a TV movie, so I don't have the same expectations for something that wasn't released in theaters, so I expect something on a smaller scale. The camera's gonna be locked down for most of the runtime, nothing crazy, just some close-ups, POVs, and slow trucking shots. Maybe a couple snap zooms too. I enjoy the Louisiana Bayou setting, it adds flavor to this otherwise standard horror-themed murder mystery plot. It's driven by dialogue and performances, and both are pretty decent for the most part. David Janssen has a dogged tiredness as the sheriff that brings believability to the role.
If there is a person that can tear iron bars out of a brick wall.
And that's the best way to describe Moon of the Wolf. It's a sleepy movie you put on in the background. The mystery falls flat, and it's not particularly scary or suspenseful, but it comes out perfectly decent thanks to its cast. And it gets pretty fun in the last 20 minutes when the werewolf finally appears. It's easily the best movie so far. With a title like She-Gods of Shark Reef, you'd expect something fun, like, say, Shark Girls, but nah, it's just a bunch of ladies on an island. Again, it's not really a sci-fi movie. It's about as much of a sci-fi movie as Swamp Women is a horror film. I swear, did Mill Creek only pick these movies for the titles? And speaking of Swamp Women, it's another early effort from future prolific B-movie director Roger Corman. And yeah, it's not one of his better movies, if you can believe it. Two men get shipwrecked near an island populated by women. The two men are brothers and one of them is a criminal. They encounter murky stock footage of sharks. The colors in general are just really washed out and ugly. There are endless dancing and singing scenes, a staple of bad B-movies.
It is a time the gods are angry. We have had great winds for a month.
This lady switches between fractured, broken English and proper sentences in every scene.
That place taboo. Shark god angry long time now.
But yeah, this movie is sluggishly paced, and I was utterly bored with it. Next movie. The Amazing Transparent Man. What's so amazing about him? All I've gotta do is this. Boom. There's your transparent man. No need to make a movie about it. No, what's actually amazing about this movie is how it's only 57 minutes.
I imagine you've seen enough for one day,
Opening with a prison escape scene and evading detection from a very gullible police officer,
Drunk driving.
Well, there's no need to bother him.
convict Joey Faust is turned invisible by a mad scientist, and he is used to commit crimes against his will. The invisibility is an ego boost at first, but it starts wearing off mid-mission, and it even has nuclear consequences. The Faustian reference doesn't really work since the main character is given a special power against his own will, so right out of the gate, the parallel isn't the most comparable. The film descends into unintentional comedy when Faust becomes invisible, and the other actors have to mime his interactions with them. It's like a poor man's Invisible Man.
Here we go gathering nuts and may on a cold and frosty morning.
The Amazing Transparent Man is hokey as shit, but the acting is decent, the short runtime gives it a breezy pacing, and it's got a number of funny moments. It's such a simple premise, and the film delivers. This man does indeed become transparent. The title isn't a tease. It even ends with the mad scientist addressing you, yes, you, directly.
What would you do?
A bit telling of this set's quality so far that this is the second best film so far. But that can quickly change. Next movie. Bada bing bada boom, hey look at that, it's our next movie, The Atomic Brain. It was shot in 1958 as Monstrosity, but it was shelved until 1963. Dr. Frank, a little too on the nose with the name there, is experimenting on transplanting human and animal brains. His experiments are funded by an aging woman who plans on having her brain put in the body of a younger woman, and she invites 3 of them to her spooky mansion. Okay, that's kind of a creepy science fiction premise. I can see why it's on this box set.
I'm a doctor. I'll take care of her.
Unfortunately, this is a high-concept B-movie where every other element doesn't work. No one will be seated during the thrilling walking down the stairs scene. This is really testing my patience. Oh,
What's up with the stairs? God damn.
There's a dog man who came about as a result of one of Dr. Frank's experiments. He also transplants the brain of a cat into a girl, and if this is what real-life cat girls would be like, I don't know if I want them anymore.
Anita, listen to me.
Hell, they squandered the opportunity for a dog man versus cat girl fight scene. Eventually, the brain of the old lady gets put in the cat to stop her evil scheme, but that doesn't stop her from being evil. Yeah, this movie sucks. Next one. Man, there's a lot of woman-themed movies on this set. Sex appeal sells, I guess, but this movie definitely wasn't made to be hot. A beauty company's sales are declining, and Janice Starling, the aging CEO whose face is used in advertising, is blamed. In the hopes of rejuvenating her looks, a biologist gives her an experimental jelly extracted from wasps to make her young. She's got less makeup making her look older, I guess. There's not much of a change. The biologist demonstrates this by turning a guinea pig into a mouse. Pretty sure that's not how biology works.
It's not possible.
It's like how Konga thinks chimps are just younger versions of guys in gorilla suits. The soundtrack throughout is just really unfitting. There's dramatic horror music playing when nothing is happening. And big band jazz music during the horror scenes. It's like they got them switched around. The Wasp Woman herself is a unique monster, at least. Too bad she's in such a shit movie.
Oh, God.
No!
Oh,
Whoa.
God.
Gotta squish that cat. There's not a lot of attempted suspense or tension until the last act when Starling starts turning into the Wasp Woman and offing people. Until then, all she really gets is a headache. It contributes to a sluggish pacing. While the scenes with the Wasp Woman are fun, they don't make up for the rest of it. While it may be boring in execution, it does make for an interesting entry in this collection. If you're gonna see this one, skip to the last 10 minutes. Like The Fly, this movie actually got a remake. Not sure if I want to cover this one.
I'm in love with an insect woman.
She's been strangled. The spider.
Keeping with the theme of bug-faced killers, Horrors of Spider Island features a man with a spider face. I hate to imagine the children he'd have with Wasp Woman. So here's the gist of it. Horrors of Spider Island is a dubbed German film.
All right, you can work with us, as long as you don't have any affairs.
It's about a bunch of girls and one guy who crash in the middle of the ocean on the way to a gig in Singapore. The good news is that they found an island. The bad news is that we're subjected to the girls bickering for half an hour. Also, the island is full of spiders, and getting bitten by one turns you into a spider person. It's kind of misogynistic, too.
Smile, will you?
When they get stranded on the island, a bunch of the women act like spoiled children, and the guy, Gary as he's named, has to come in and break them up like he's their dad or something.
Hey! Stop that fighting. Okay, girls, that's enough. Let's go and have a look around. Come on, come on, come on.
The way this film writes women is terrible.
The boys will be surprised when they see how we've dressed ourselves up in our island costumes.
The way it writes, everything is terrible, actually.
A hammer with a long handle. It must be for the purpose of excavating some sort of metal. Most probably uranium.
The makeup on Spider Gary is pretty freaky, surprisingly. They didn't go all the way with it, only having it cover his hands and face, but it's the only good thing about the film. The transformation is instant, by the way. No long build up to them turning into spiders, just poof, instant Spider-Man. Yeah, this flick is just an excuse to parade around a bunch of women with the loose justification of a monster movie. Most of the final act is a party scene where the girls vie for the attention of two guys who happen upon the island. It's sleazy, it's boring. There's a high-pitched whirring that plays throughout the entire film due to it being a crappy VHS rip.
Listen, what a strange silence.
It's not worth your time. Unless you like your hot lady movies with off-putting mutated Spider-Men to kill whatever libido you've got. Voyage to a Prehistoric Planet is a Roger Corman-produced re-edit of a Soviet movie named Planet of Storms. It's kind of amazing to me that we were still importing movies from the USSR during the most heated period of the Cold War. They even added fake names to the credits to hide the fact that this is a Russian film. Scenes with English-speaking actor Basil Rathbone were added to trick the viewer even further, but the rest of it is very clearly dubbed.
Seems so unreal.
Also, they forgot to leave out this shot of the rocket with Cyrillic on the side.
The year 2020.
There is no pandemic in this universe, but great strides have been taken in space travel. The prehistoric planet in the title is Venus.
This is truly a prehistoric planet.
Hey, he said it. The film follows a group of cosmonauts as they fend off the planet's many hazards, including hopping dinosaurs, pteranodons, and giant plants. Somewhat reminiscent of the Angry Red Planet, but this one's got a robot. His name is Robot John. I love the production design of this film. The dinosaurs are goofy looking, the cosmonauts are riding around in a hover vehicle, and I don't know if it's just the shitty transfer, but I think they did a good job dressing up this Russian landscape as convincingly alien. Some really great miniatures too. It really earns its place in this box set. I also enjoy the look of the robot, it's nice and retro. Unfortunately, that's where my praise ends.
Hey, what is for lunch? I'll try for a blood sample if I don't go.
The characters are almost always cracking jokes about their predicament, like they saw a funny animal at the zoo and didn't just barely escape from certain doom.
Can you imagine that? He's bashful.
It deflates the tension and keeps the film's tone dull. This lack of tension carries over even into the most dangerous scenarios, like when the robot is carrying 2 cosmonauts over a river of lava and is forced to throw one of them off. There's so much time spent talking and less spent doing. The pacing is rather plodding. I know it's an older film and probably didn't have the budget for anything more than what's shown, but it really needed more dinosaur scenes. You can't just introduce something like that early on and underutilize it. The film's climax is also quite unclimactic.
We must stay! We must stay!
It involves this beehive hairdo lady almost taking off and landing on Venus, and the drama that ensues is short-lived. We quickly learn she didn't even take off, and it's like, wow, thanks for wasting our time. I'm sure if she actually did land on the planet, they'd have to fake some set piece with her and the other actors because she's clearly from the reshot footage. The ending doesn't make any sense either. There's apparently humanoid creatures on the planet, and they heard them throughout the film. Whatever. Yeah, this movie's got problems in its writing and pacing, but I enjoyed this a little more than the other movies on this set. It's got fun production values. One of the better movies so far. With our next film, we're kicking it up a notch. We're not just going to any prehistoric planet. No, this is a voyage to a planet of prehistoric women. Ooh. And, hey, wait a minute. This is just the same movie. Yeah, in a profoundly cheap move, Roger Corman once again used footage from Planet of Storms to tell what's essentially the same story.
Can you imagine that? He's bashful.
This time through a framing device as a narrator tells the story.
Wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you the whole story.
There's also new footage that shows the race of humans living on Venus. It's women in bikinis, of course. But they functionally serve the same purpose as the ominous ghostly noises heard throughout the last movie. Very economical of you, Mr. Corman. They also forgot to remove this shot of a spaceship with Cyrillic on the side in this movie too.
You are looking at the actual models of spacecraft now being developed by agencies of the United States government.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's got all the same issues as the other movie, but it presents a choice. You can either watch a version that's slightly more faithful to the original Planet of Storms, or you could watch a version where hot babes interrupt the narrative every once in a while. Pick your poison. Alright, on to the next movie. I appear to have misplaced it. And what's that sound? Wow, thanks for finding it, Gammera. You're the best. Love that guy. And what a sight for sore eyes, a Gammera movie. Initially conceived by Japanese studio Daiei as a rival to Toho's Godzilla, Gammera would carve out his own identity as a friend to all children. A move that, ironically, forced Godzilla to play copycat when his films shifted to being more kid-friendly. The first 2 Gammera movies, however, were more like the first 2 Godzilla movies, being more straight-laced monster affairs, minus the whole bit about fear of nuclear power or any of that fun subtext. The first Gammera movie featured in this box set is the American cut of the first movie, Gammera the Invincible. Note to the 2 M's in the title. The copy included here is a cropped pan and scan, but I'll be using the widescreen version. Like the first Godzilla movie, this cut includes extra scenes with English-speaking actors, though it should be noted that the original Japanese version had scenes with English-speaking actors too.
No, sir. It must be coated with anti-electric wave paint, sir.
Cut, let's do that again.
Which can get confusing when talking about this movie with other people.
What's going on around here? I don't know, sir. Looks like a huge turtle made its appearance.
The reshot scenes stick out like a sore thumb.
Baby, it's cold outside.
It's right, gorgeous.
At least King of the Monsters made an effort to integrate the Raymond Burr footage.
Steve Martin, are you badly hurt?
The American scenes in this film feel isolated from the rest of the movie.
A giant turtle.
I do enjoy the scene where political pundits discuss Gammera's existence. Their acting is just so goofy.
I demand an apology. I've devoted my life to science, gentlemen.
So here is the plot. During the cold open, an altercation between Soviet and American forces in the Arctic ends in a nuclear explosion that frees Gammera, a giant turtle, from the ice. From there, Gammera travels across the world before settling in Japan. He saves a little boy, named Toshio in this dub and the original cut, and infamously renamed Kenny in the Sandy Frank dub.
Those kids at school, they tease you, Kenny, because they're never tasted hell.
The rest of the film consists of Gammera's rampage through Japan as the government, with the help of Colonel Sanders, develops new strategies to stop him. Toshio, or Kenny, has clear mental hang-ups given his obsession with turtles. It's clear that this kid is supposed to be a little odd. What I don't understand is why this element was even included in the movie at all, because it paints Gammera very strangely. The film can't decide whether he's a benevolent creature who cares about kids or a vengeful monster who willingly destroys cities and kills thousands. It's clearly the former in later movies, so if anything, that should have been the direction from the very beginning instead of this more Godzilla-like behavior. I wouldn't mind this being in the movie if it had a proper resolution. As is, Toshio just fumbles around in the narrative. It feels like two different movies are happening here. That said, he does well in setting himself apart with his own set of abilities. There's a great moment when the military flips him on his back, cause what better way to defeat a giant turtle monster?
As with any other turtle, once he's on his back, he can't get up again.
But then Gammera starts spinning, revealing that he was the UFO seen earlier in the film, throwing the characters for a loop as he takes to the air. Having a monster reveal a secret or new ability is a great way of upping the stakes.
Yes, General?
Would you give me a cup of coffee, please? Black, no sugar.
This is undoubtedly the worst version of the movie, but if you don't mind the American scenes constantly interrupting the film, it's got all of the key scenes. It even predates the Gammera theme we all know and love with its own Gammera theme. The original Gammera, American cut aside, isn't a great movie. With the exception of Gammera's unique set of skills, it's a pretty standard monster movie that's a little confused tonally. It's not one of the best Gammera movies either, but it's a good time in its own right. The special effects scenes look great, I love Gammera as a monster, and it's easily the most fun I've had with this box set so far. If you're gonna watch this one, go with the original Japanese cut.
Gammera, sayonara!
Sayonara, Gammera. Is what I would be saying if the next movie wasn't another Gammera flick. But that's a movie for next week's video. Tune in for part 2 of this bargain bin dumpster dive next Saturday. There will be another Gammera movie. A movie about extraterrestrial teenagers played by people in their 30s. An ill-conceived Christmas movie about Santa Claus and Martians. 4 Hercules movies in a row that, quite frankly, do not belong in this box set. And one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. I would like to give a shout out to Keymace for the Golden Chan doodles. I think they're a great way of emoting, and they were made for a Friday Night Funkin' mod of all things. Anyways, here's a shout out to my $5 patrons. I started production on this video way back in July, so here are all the people who subbed up to now, even if they're not active. The next video will reflect the current standing. My $5 patrons are Dante Infante, It's Godzi, Big Odilo, An Actual Dimetrodon, Space Hunter M, CMG, Red Comet Harry, and Marpzilla. Thank you very much.